What if I told you that a subject you probably sat through in school is actually a superhero in disguise? Yeah, I'm talking about social studies. And honestly, its powers are more important right now than they've ever been. So let's gear up and uncover them together. So let's just start with the big question right out of the gate. If social studies really were a superhero, what would its powers even be? And maybe more importantly, why should you care? Why do we all need these powers? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. You know, every good superhero has an origin story, right? And it always starts with them discovering their powers. For us, that means we're going to pop open the Social Studies Toolkit and see exactly what we're working with. To become a hero, you've got to understand what you're made of. Our power, it turns out, is built from 6 fundamental pieces. Think of it like a puzzle. When you click them all together, you finally see the whole picture, an effective, engaged citizen. So here they are, the building blocks. First up, you've got your facts, the key dates and events. Then, concepts. These are the big ideas, like democracy or culture. After that, generalizations, kind of like broad statements about how society tends to work. And then we get to the really active stuff, skills for solving problems, values like honesty and integrity, and finally, attitudes like tolerance and respect. These are the raw materials for your superpower. And here's the thing, this is absolutely the most important part. This is not about memorizing a bunch of facts for a test. The real mission to social studies is transformation. It's literally designed to change how you think, how you feel, and ultimately how you act out in the world. And that transformation, it happens across 3 key areas. First, the cognitive domain. That's all about shaping how you think, how you analyze information and connect ideas. Then there's the affective domain, which shapes how you feel by building things like empathy and your core values. And the third one, the psychomotor domain. Well, that's about putting it all into practice. It's how you act. Think, feel, act. It's the whole package. So, when you put it all together, social studies isn't just another subject on your schedule, it's a power kit. It hands you the knowledge, the attitude, and the skills you need to become someone who's not just living in the world, but actively and responsibly shaping it for the better. Okay, so we've got our toolkit, we know what our powers are made of. Now it's time for our first training mission. And you know what they say, every hero starts local. So our first focus is going to be on the power of community. In so many cultures around the world, the first and most important community you ever have is your extended family. We're not just talking about your parents and siblings. We're talking about a whole network of relatives, a vital support system that provides everything from childcare to moral guidance. And really, this idea of a support system, it grows beyond just family, right? It extends into our neighborhoods and local groups, forming the very bedrock of a strong society. Let's make this real for a second. This support system works in very practical ways. It's your grandmother telling you folk tales that you realize later were actually teaching you right from wrong. It's your uncle who steps in to help when your parents are sick or overwhelmed. It's that entire web of relatives sharing their wisdom, their stories, their guidance. That's the power of community in action. But look, being a hero isn't always about comfort and support. Sometimes it means facing really difficult truths. So, our next training mission, it's a lot more challenging. It's going to require us to use our powers for awareness, for protection, and above all, for justice. And one of the biggest injustices we face today is human trafficking. The definition is pretty straightforward, but it's chilling. It's tricking and moving people for the sole purpose of exploiting them. Let's be clear, it's a modern form of slavery, and it's built entirely on lies and deception. The logic behind it is just brutal. The causes? Well, they're often rooted in desperation, things like deep poverty, or just straight-up manipulation, like false promises of a good job and a better life. And the consequences are absolutely devastating. Families are shattered. And maybe worst of all, there's this tragic loss of human potential. Think about it, all the dreams and contributions that person could have made, just stolen. The fight for justice, though, it also means we have to look inward. It means using our powers to find the courage to examine our own traditions and to confront the practices that cause harm, no matter how long they've been around. Now, 2 deeply harmful examples of this are child marriage, which robs children of their youth and their future, and female genital mutilation. And what's so complex is that these practices often continue not because people are evil, but because they're deeply embedded in cultural identity and social pressure. That's why understanding the why behind them is the crucial first step to creating real change. It's about using our toolkit to challenge these violations of fundamental human rights. But here's the hopeful part. It's not just about tearing down the bad stuff. The ultimate mission here is to build something better. The real goal is to identify and promote the positive cultural practices that lift people up. The ones that are built on a foundation of respect for every single person. And this brings us to the final test in our justice training. See, true justice isn't just the absence of fighting. It's something more profound. It's what's called positive peace, which is the active presence of fairness, of equity, and of deep understanding in a society. So how in the world do we build this positive peace? Well, it starts with actions that are actually pretty simple, but incredibly powerful. It means actively listening to people, especially those you disagree with. And it means that when you see injustice, no matter how small it seems, you use your voice, you speak up. These are the daily actions that, brick by brick, build a peaceful world. So we've put together our toolkit. We've gone through some intense training missions. Now it's time for the final stage. This is where we graduate from being a student into a full-fledged active citizen. And with your powers fully developed, these aren't just abstract ideas anymore. No, they're your core life skills. The ability to show genuine respect for others, to practice tolerance even when it's hard, to engage in advocacy for what you believe is right, and to use critical thinking for real-world problem solving. So let's circle all the way back to our original question. What are the superpowers of social studies? Well, here's your answer. It's the power to give knowledge, to promote empathy, to teach values, to encourage justice, and most importantly, to inspire responsible action. It is, quite literally, the complete package for a modern-day hero. The training is over. The toolkit is yours. The missions are waiting. So now, the only question left is the one for you. You have the power. What are you going to change first?